Hey everybody, so is Dexter New Blood coming back? Well, I don't know. But let's talk about the rumors, the possibilities of what would make it possible. Possibilities make it possible. Anyway, forget the redundancy. Let's talk about Dexter New Blood, the finale. That seems to be the final nail in the coffin in the hearts of the audience. So the finale was a disappointment, to say the least, just like the finale of the original series was. And it was brought back to do justice to the other finale, is what we as an audience have been told. Now, I'm not only a fan of the show and an audience member, but I'm also a filmmaker. I direct, I produce, I write, I edit, blah, 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 all of that stuff. So I see it through different lenses, why things go the way they do in any kind of production. And in my last video, I did talk about some of the things that could have led to the finale being the way it was, not being given enough time to do the amount of story they were trying to do. Number one, right off the bat, that's one of my biggest problems with it. Now, the rumor out there is that Michael C. Hall did not even want to come back in the first place to restart the series. He was okay with coming back to finish it up and give it the ending that the audience deserved, but he didn't want to sign back on for the series. Although every once in a while you see an interview with him where they ask, hey, if you were offered the opportunity, would you come back? And he's like, maybe. So who really knows? You know, when I was an intern at a big time radio station a long time ago, I was taught a very early lesson about what is the truth of the story and what is not. And they said there's a saying in the industry about, is that the real story or is that the PR story? And this is part of the thing. We are never really going to know, unless we were in the room with any of these people, what the real story was. Did Showtime not give them enough money because they wanted to see what would happen? Did you have an actor that did not really want to come back, but he was willing to come back briefly? There are 10 million reasons what the truth could be and how they took that truth and how they spin it to fit the narrative that they want for the show. Some of it is to save face for people. Some of it can be just the truth. You never know. It can be any combination of this. So let's go with your lead does not want to come back. Well, obviously that is a major problem if you have an actor that does not want to go back to a show. And the audience is like, but he's Dexter. Why wouldn't he want to come back to us? Well, okay, I understand why you feel the way you do and why I, as an audience member, feel the way I do. At the end of the day, you need this person to play that role, unlike Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man, where you can just cast a new person for the new iteration of it. And most people are going to be good with that. Not everybody. I mean, I think we all have our favorite Joker and our favorite Batman and so on. But with Dexter, he's one of those that you really can't replace him. He is who he is. Michael C. Hall is incredibly talented. When you have an actor like that a big part of why people are watching the show is to watch him perform. And that's because he has that extra special magic that some performers have that other very talented performers don't have. He has it. And he's someone who can carry a show. Now, what often happens to people when they have a hit show is they can fall into that pit of being typecast. And that's a major problem for a lot of actors. When Wonder Woman from the TV series from a long time ago was offered the part, she said she had to consider that this was that kind of show where she might get stuck being Wonder Woman for all eternity. And she had to decide right then and there for herself, was she going to make peace with that, or was that going to become a problem? Because she felt she owed it to the fans to never punish the fans for loving her for being Wonder Woman if the show became a hit. And that was a very generous decision on her part, very empathetic. Um, it is difficult for an actor because you have to understand, most actors do not get into acting to play a certain part, to be famous. The saying goes, do you want to act or do you want to be famous? And there are people out there that want to be famous and they'll do whatever it takes to be famous. And then there are actors that they love the thrill of the performance. They're passionate about that skill set, because that is a skill set. Yes, it starts with a talent, but you really have to dedicate a lot of time to hone those skills, to morph and become a person that you're not. It's an amazing transformation to watch. And when you're a director and you work with the actor and you mold that clay together to make that scene, it's very exciting. I mean, it's one of my favorite parts of the process. I've done some acting. I like it. I prefer stand-up better. And probably because I like to be a writer and a director, which would make me a horrible actor, because part of being an actor is to be cooperative with what your director wants. So, Michael C. Hall is an actor. He really not only has the talent, but the skill set and the love of the craft. You can see it because he brings all these little nuances to the character. And that's part of why we all love him. If he was some creepy looking guy that wasn't so likable and played that role, I guarantee you, we may feel differently. If it was poorly acted, we may feel differently about whether Dexter survives or not. Or would we all be like, yes, please kill him? So Michael C. Hall, being someone that loves his craft, didn't get into the biz to only play Dexter. And yes, he had 6 Feet Under before him. TV show. If you never watched it, check it out. It's amazing. And he was known for being that character. And my understanding is not long before that, he was a theater actor. He hadn't had a show before. And then he was lucky enough to get Dexter. Has he done other things? Yes, but not to that level. Has being Dexter possibly gotten in the way? Possibly. That's what happens. When casting people see someone, are they going to think, oh, Dexter? And are they going to put certain things on him? Or if he does a performance, they're still going to see Dexter. That happens. Now, good casting people should not do that. But sometimes they're also going according to, if they are making an assumption about the audience, that maybe the audience isn't going to be able to see beyond their love of Dexter, or that they know him, for being Dexter. And that goes back to the other side of things, which is money. If a network is going to put money, and a lot of money, into something, they want to know that whoever they're putting in that role can become that role for the show and for the audience. And for an audience that might have known them as someone else, but can they forget about that they were this person and become this other one and stand on their own? If they can't, then the show might fail, because everyone will be so caught up in him being Dexter that they can't picture him as, whatever the other role is. he plays Father of the Year, or he plays, a disc jockey or whatever it is, but he's not murdering people. He's someone who discovers, the latest revolution in medicine as a character, but they're still waiting for him to kill someone or to be that vigilante hero. So trying to get an audience out of who they knew him as is difficult, and that can mean money on the line, that can be money lost, and that's the way a network thinks. Is it fair? I don't know. When it's your pocketbook, you can answer that. In a perfect world, no, of course it's not fair. People should be given an opportunity to prove themselves, but again, when there's big money, millions of dollars of money on the line, they tend to look at what an audience is saying. Now, if Michael C. Hall was to get a role that really gave him an opportunity to be just as known as Dexter was, and be in people's mind as that character as well, and it doesn't mean he can't do both. I mean, there have been plenty of people who have done 2 or more shows and are iconic in each of those roles. If he could achieve that kind of status, maybe, and I'm assuming, I don't know any inside info. Let me be very clear about this. I don't know why, if it's true, that he didn't want to come back to embrace the whole thing. These are my guesses, knowing actors, that unless you have something that tops that, that's sort of holding you back from progressing and doing other things and not just being this one character. Because also, since he is someone who is, when I say an actor, I mean other people are actors, yes. But there are some people that they love playing different parts and stretching themselves in different directions. And there are other people that are equally as talented that are totally fine doing a certain type of character. And there's nothing wrong with either of those. So if you have someone who really wants to have more variety and stretch their acting muscles in many different directions, but they're not being given the opportunity because that role might be holding them back from it, why would they want to return to it? See what I mean? So this is a possibility that, sorry, this is a possibility that being Dexter has made him not feel satisfied with the things he'd love to do in his career. And if he could get something else iconic, then maybe he might consider it. Or maybe he's done with it. Maybe he's, I mean, look at Samantha from Sex and the City. She was done. Now, who knows? You never know if she comes back. For anybody, you never know if they come back. It really matters what's going on outside of that project and that journey that would either make them return or never want to return at all. Now, do networks listen to audiences? Absolutely, they do. So if, for example, there was a role he was in, or there was a type of character he played, and audiences were going onto those websites and saying, on whatever the channel's website or the network's website is, where they have the reviews and going, oh my God, I love him in this role. Do they read that? Yes, they read that. Those things are very important for them to determine the value of that star's ability to, to make them consider a person for a show and for that show to be built on that person's image. So reviews are incredibly important. And I'm not talking about YouTube reviews. I'm talking about the stuff the network is going to see. And very often it's the written stuff that's directly related to the show, on the show's website. That stuff is actually really, really important. Any way that you can get the network to know what you think can really make or break a show. So now, would Michael C. Hall come back because, okay, He's not getting much great stuff. I mean, I'm looking on his IMDb. I mean, he's got some stuff, but it's not the same level as Dexter. He's also an executive producer on Dexter. That's the person who tries to help with ideas, getting money. You know, they make money from the show, which may have a hand in how the decisions were made when it came to how long this last run was. Because if it is true that he was like, look, I am coming back for a one and done. We are going to kill Dexter off. I will not be here for anything past that. And you have me for X amount of time. Now, this is something that is very common with performers, to know what their availability is. How long do you have them for? Is this an unfair thing for someone to say? No, I mean, you have the time for. And especially if this is not your priority job that you're going to move heaven and earth to make sure your schedule is clear for, you know, he might have said, this is the amount of time I can clear to do this. There is also the aspect that playing a serial killer is an emotional drain. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's a big thrill to it. But in order to get into a certain mindset, whether you're playing a cancer patient, you're playing a serial killer, you're playing someone that was, came across Bigfoot, whatever it is, you have to go into a dark place. And to do that as your day job all the time, that asks a lot of someone emotionally. And people don't give actors enough credit for how difficult their job is. Like, well, it's not exactly laying bricks. Well, there's different kinds of difficulty in jobs. But if you think about your most painful emotional time in your life ever, think about it for a minute. Go there for a split second. Now imagine that's what you have to purposely do, is go to that dark of a place, that painful of a place every day. And you have to repeat it. Okay, we have to do another take. Okay, we have to do another one. Let's just get another. That was it. We got it. Let's do one more for safety, because all directors love to say that, just to make sure they really got it. And imagine that you're put into that kind of pain and you're having to pull this up all the time. Now, granted, you're going to say, but he looks like he's having fun. Right. But if you watch the whole Dexter series, you know that a big part of what he had to do was channel his childhood, in which his mother was murdered in front of him. And this is a big root to why Dexter is the way he is. So he has to pull in and reach somehow that imaginary childhood pain every single time he plays Dexter. That's a lot. So perhaps, if it's not the typecasting thing, could it be that that's just a tough role, more so than people would give you credit for, to pull off all the time? Maybe. I mean, maybe the stress level associated with it is just not rewarding, especially when you're not feeling satisfied with wanting to get other juicy roles to put your teeth into. Maybe doing an equally stressful role, but it's something different, would still have that new thrill, as opposed to, I am constantly this person. Because the more you stay in that mindset, you're going to need a little bit of... It's not unusual for people to need some counseling when they do roles like that for an extended period of time. It's tricky, The point of acting is you really have to go there. You have to become that person. And I don't mean go out and kill people like Dexter. Like, the actor doesn't have to go and do that, but he has to go to that person's trauma to understand why they make the decisions they do, why they feel or don't feel the way that they do. So it's amazing to be able to go to that level of pain or joy or whatever this character requires, insanity, and be able to pull it out as you need it all day long for a 20-hour shoot for 6 days a week, a day off, and go back and do 6 days, and so on and so on. It's a lot to ask. So is that maybe why he's not coming back? Because it's a bit much? I don't know. I have no inside info, but I'm just giving you some of the realities of what people in the field have to deal with. And perhaps these are some reasons. Now, would he be willing to come back if there was a reboot where the focus was more on Harrison? I mean, who knows? Maybe that would be more interesting because that's a different path. Maybe he just doesn't want to play Dexter trying to get away with stuff and always on the run and always trying to avoid his dark passenger and so on and so on. If he becomes the ghost, that might be a new challenge. See, this is the thing. He might be looking for a new challenge, and maybe he just wanted to, okay, let's just tie this up. Let's give the audience a better ending. That didn't work out very well. I mean, there are some people that liked it. And that's the beauty of being an audience. Everybody's entitled to their opinion on whatever the art is. What's beauty to one person is ugly to another. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is no right answer in this. And that's really important to realize, is it's art. Now, if you have a huge portion of the audience really frustrated and disappointed, are there some things that could have been done differently so that this whole thing didn't feel rushed? Yes. Personally, and I'm not saying that this is black and white, right or wrong, but if you have an audience feeling jilted and the reason that you came back to do this season was to make that right, and you made the same mistake again because it's the same end result, then maybe there was something in the putting it together that didn't go so well. Because definitely mistakes can get made in that process. And I understand everyone's tired, they're frustrated, they just want to get it done, and they want to come up with this great idea. Maybe there's a good opportunity, and this is the time that the opportunity is being offered. And my understanding is, and I did hear Michael C. Hall say this in an interview, that they knew that they needed Dexter to die, so they started with that and worked backwards. And I have heard people criticizing that, going, well, why did they do that? Well, first of all, according to the way one does screenwriting, you come up with an idea, whatever the idea is. And then you start off with, well, what's happening on page 1? And you really, once you know page 1, in theory, you should know the last page, and then you're filling in the rest of it. You have to have an idea of where you're going. And sometimes that's not possible when you're just trying to figure the idea out itself. And that means you're not done figuring the idea out. So there's nothing wrong with that. They knew that that's where they had to go to, and how would they get there? It's just that they didn't give enough time to execute that. Interesting choice of words. That they didn't give enough time to pull that off. They just didn't. They spent a lot of time on stuff that, I don't know, could have been replaced with better story content, more clever writing. I understand that they wanted to switch up the style a little bit because it's a different place, and I'm all for that. And yes, you couldn't give it a Miami vibe. You couldn't have all sorts of salsa music and salsa Cuban. Anyway, you can't put that vibe onto this unless it was within the context of a flashback to Miami. I'm not saying you couldn't, it's impossible, but they wanted to make us start to fall out of love with Dexter. That's why if you look at the posters, look at the old posters from the original series, he's the guy next door, he's really smiley, and maybe there's some posters where there's sort of evil Dexter, but most of them were the good-looking, likable guy. And then the posters for this one, the way the lighting is on the face, like the Scary Story lighting, where he just he looks like he's got a screw loose. He's not the nicest guy. You wouldn't want to, be caught in an alley with him, because they want us to be at peace when he dies. They want us to be okay with that and not feel like we are losing someone that we love. And that's the thing, is the audience still loves him. Now, plenty of them were okay with him being killed. They just didn't feel satisfied with how you got there. Because if you're going to have a son kill his father, we really need to see the journey that makes that okay. Now, I don't know if the fact that Harrison in the very end, and it's a spoiler, I mean, I've given a ton of spoilers away, I'm sure, at this point. He reads the letter from Dexter to Hannah saying he's not going to meet up with them, and he doesn't want to, ruin his son's life, and if he's not in his life, he'll save his son, blah, blah, blah. Basically, that letter says that Harrison knew all along what the deal was. And so the fact that he's making this discovery with his father of what happened, well, it makes you go, so did he find him to kill him? Was he setting him up the whole time? Which could be an interesting setup if there was a new blood. And then Dexter is his ghost. That new blood is not working unless you have Michael C. Hall as the ghost. It's just not. Now, it'd be nice if Deb could be in there somewhere, but I don't know that they're going to have a whole bunch of people in the afterlife arguing, with Harrison over what he should do or not do. I mean, it'd be kind of funny. So I don't know if this idea is already there. I understand why audiences are super frustrated, because one of the reasons they're frustrated is they love to watch Michael C. Hall perform. So if they were to make the Dexter series last a little bit longer, I mean, one idea, I doubt they're going for anything like this. But if they so wanted to bring him back, and he wanted to come back, and he wanted to get a bunch of seasons out of it, an easy route to go. Sure, you could go the route that, he actually missed him. He's not actually dead, because it's cold out. He didn't really bleed out, and start from that moment. Or you could go right back to when he's a lumberjack. And what's that story that should not take place in Iron Lake, should take place in someplace else, where, I don't know, maybe someone's on his tail and he has to leave there. And then he ends up in Iron Lake. And then we get brought to where his son shoots him. And then you can go from that point and bring it into the New Blood thing, where it would turn into this spin-off where we see Harrison's journey. So that would be one option of doing it if you were going to go that route. I think they're not going to do that. I am hoping that they are going to do something, anything. But there's so many ways that they can make Dexter not dead. I don't think it's that people are upset that Dexter's dead. I think it's they still want him to be on screen. Because you can still, there are so many creative ways that you can bring anybody into it that you want to. If you went to the lumberjack thing, and even if the lumberjack thing was flashbacks, and showing what Dexter's life is and what Harrison's life is. Harrison growing up, Harrison, running around Miami by himself with foster family because Hannah died, like trying to find his father and lead to this point. That's an interesting story to go and look back at. I mean, obviously before this kid ages too much, get on it if they were ever to go with an idea like that. He has a very youthful look, and he can play a teenager right now. Give that a few years, and that is going to change. So, whatever they're going to do, they really have to think about it. Um, you know, the thing as filmmakers, whether you're a big network, an independent filmmaker, is you have to try and consider your audience, because they are part of the process as well. And you always want your audience to fall in love with the character, fall into love, fall into hate, but you want them to want that character and to either love watch them or hate watch them, but that's what you want to do. And you want to bring out certain feelings in your audience. That's what you're trying to do, is make them experience life vicariously. And so you owe them something, because when you're creating a character, it's very much like being a parent in a certain way. I mean, you are birthing something, you are creating a place, you are creating people, you are creating situations. And your audience is actually part of that whole experience, because you have an idea of the emotions that you want to create in your audience. So they're a character in a certain way, a behind the scenes character, but it is something that you are thinking of subconsciously or consciously. It's there in your brain. This is the moment that you want people to cry. This is the moment you want people to go, that was scary. And this is the moment you want people to laugh. Ha ha. This stuff when you are creating this. So to rush through it and go, they're going to be fine with it. I don't know. I feel like the audience was sort of considered, but sort of not considered. I feel like the audience was sort of taken for granted, and maybe they didn't realize that. Maybe they were trying to combine their issues, their lack of time, and this is the only way we're going to get Michael C. Hall, and being an executive producer on a project gives him a certain kind of power. Not like he has the power of being the star, but he also has the power as well of being an executive producer on that show. And for him to go, nope, this is all you're getting from me, figure it out. And I'm sure he did sit there and try to shoot ideas with them, I'm sure. All right. And I'm not saying that he was being inconsiderate of the audience. I don't think anyone was deliberately being inconsiderate of the audience. I think they were trying to actually do right by the audience, but you just can't please everybody in the situation. That's what seems to have gone wrong. And in a certain way, the audience was taken for granted that, well, there's an audience that wants it. This is what we have. They'll be good with this. And I really think that if they had thought about the writing a little bit more and the style of it, that's where it was unfair to the audience. Because, okay, if you were only going to do this one short season and that's all you were going to do for the audience, then you could have done a little bit less. I know you want to throw the audience off, but the clever, funny stuff really wasn't fully there. There was a lot of stuff that was interesting and directions I was enjoying that they were going, but then when they didn't go anywhere, it was dissatisfying. That's the stuff that should have been there, so that it was not about quantity, it was about quality. That's what they needed, was more quality. And it's the nods that they gave to the original Dexter were, the nods should have been clever writing and a stronger style. I know they were trying to do a style where it was moody and dark, because he's in Iron Lake in a place that, doesn't seem to be the best fit for him, because in a big city he can blend in. In there, it's a lot harder to blend in and get away with stuff and to be deprived. And it's almost depressing, because he can't be his true self, because he really does have to abstain in order to survive in a place like that. And the mood makes a lot of sense. There could have just been a little bit more to make it more clever. Definitely that voiceover should have been in there more. It just should have. It was part of what everyone loved about the original thing. So is anything coming back? You know, we're not going to know until we know. But I think it's really important to give reviews, to, let the networks know, let Showtime know what you're thinking, what you want. Like, that's really, really important. And also to let networks know, support other projects that Michael C. Hall does, because that makes a difference too. I really think that part of the issue is you have an actor that really wants to stretch their muscles in different directions and not just get caught in this one pose and that's all they're doing. I think that's a huge part. I think you'll get more out of him if he can do something different, even if it's, playing the ghost. But I still think he wants to do other projects. And I really think he, if you can go and support those other projects that he's doing and get networks and casting agents and all of that to give him more opportunities and not typecast him, that will make a much happier person that might be more willing to take back on this project. Maybe not as Dexter who's alive, but still come back to it. So those are my thoughts for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Put them down in the comments below. And let's see what comes of this. Hopefully Dexter will be back. And hopefully Michael C. Hall gets to give us a whole bunch of projects that we want to watch him in. Because who doesn't love watching Michael C. Hall perform? So I think it's a two for here. We want to see Michael C. Hall perform. We want to see what he performs in. We want new projects to come out of that, new guilty pleasures to watch. And we also want to have Dexter come back in some way, shape, or form that works for Michael C. Hall and the audience as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks so much.